The NBA playoffs are upon us, and folks, I can make the argument this could be the passing of the guard, and this is the most unpredictable NBA playoffs in my 25-year-old lifetime. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, generators, welcome in to Brandon's World on this Thursday, April 18th, 2024, at the time of this recording on Wednesday, April 17th, 2024. We have three more playing games to go, of course, or excuse me, four more playing games. The two tonight between the Heat and the Sixers, the Hawks and the Bulls, and then the two on Friday as we determine the eighth seed. But today I'm gonna go through because I think that the Eastern Conference playing tournament is a little bit more cut and dry than what was the West last night. As I really think the Western Conference is as deep as any conference potentially in the history of the NBA playoffs, and it could come down to health. For the East, there are some intriguing matchups, specifically the Philly Miami 7-8 playing game, because I do think that whoever does win/lose will make the playoffs. I don't think neither the Hawks or Bulls will. And I think either of those two teams could give the Celtics and the New York Knicks some trouble. But again, I think at the end of the day here, there's sort of one undisputed team that we all think in the East, and out West, there could have been multiple possibilities depending on the result last night of the Lakers Pelicans/Kings Warriors playing games. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to go through each of these matchups in the first round. Not only am I going to do that, but after that, I'm going to go through, which you will see in a separate video clip if you are watching on the YouTube, of course. Same track here if you're just listening on audio. That will be me going through the top 10 players of the playoffs that are currently withstanding. So, because Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors got eliminated last night, Steph Curry is now off the board of top 10 players in the playoffs. But again, the NBA playoffs, even 3, 4 years ago, we sort of thought that, it could be between 2 and 4 teams who could win the NBA championship. I think this year the NBA has been as deep as ever. I think the talent is as deep as ever. I think the bench depth is as good as ever. And so ultimately, health and chemistry is what decides who wins these championships in today's NBA. But let's start with the first round because I don't think it matters whether or not the Kings or Pelicans out west win their playing tournament game. I think Oklahoma City is better than both of those teams. Now, the reason why I said that this is all matchup dependent is because I truly believe that if the Lakers were to lose to the Pelicans, and then if the Lakers were to get that 8 seed, they could have knocked off Oklahoma City. I thought if Golden State could have got past Sacramento, they could have knocked off Oklahoma City. And the reason for that is because I still believe that in today's NBA, veteran players is what wins in the playoffs. Oklahoma City is the youngest #1 seed in the history of the National Basketball Association. And really, this year in the NBA playoffs, it is a tale of two things. It is number one, we have a ton of young stars. Obviously, at the top of the West, Anthony Edwards leading the Timberwolves, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander leading the Oklahoma City Thunder. Then you have some younger teams, of course, on that Eastern Conference side with the Orlando Magic and the Indiana Pacers, who have some good talent, may win a round or two, depending on their matchup. But then we have lower level seeds like LeBron and the Lakers, like Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns. You have an injury question with Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Bucks, Joel Embiid and the Sixers, Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers. It could really be a changing of the guard. Now, history says in the NBA that unless you are a top 3 seed, and I have repeated this ad nauseum during the past, 5, 6 years I've been on the air, whether it's been the last 3 years as a full podcast, whether it's been Brandon's World at the radio show, Black School Radio, when I was in college in Kent, Ohio. There have only been two teams in the history of the NBA to have won an NBA championship not being a top 3 seed. That being the #4 seed, 1960 Boston Celtics with Bill Russell, the other being a 6 seed, 1995, Hakeem Olajuwon's Houston Rockets. But again, that team was really a top 2, 3 seed. Olajuwon missed most of the year, which is why they settled down in that 6 seed and then just cruised through the entire playoffs. A little bit like the Golden State team that won 2 years ago, though they were a 3 seed that obviously caught fire late. Um, so there is a historical precedent here, and veteran teams taking apart young teams historically in the playoffs versus the young talent that is coming of age in the NBA before our eyes. But Oklahoma City, obviously, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren leading the crew. They have a lot of great bench depth. They're very young. But I just think that Sacramento, obviously missing Malik Monk, missing Kevin Huber. Egan Murray is going to have a big series. I don't think he can repeat what he did against Golden State last night. I think in the end, and you'll see this as most of a theme here throughout these playoffs. I think in a series, obviously a 1 game playoff is different than a series. I think in a series, mostly you take the better player, depending on if that team is just overall better than you. But if it's pretty close, like it is in my situation here with the Kings and Thunder, I think Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, who is going to be, if not the runner-up, a third-place MVP. I don't think that he is the MVP of the week because I think in order to be the MVP of the week, you have to be on national television, which Oklahoma City was not on national television a lot. You have to be a prominent name, and there are guys like Nikola Jokic and Luka Doncic clearly, in my opinion, on the hierarchy more than SGA. So while SGA had a great year, and I think Oklahoma City here advances past the first round, I don't think he is necessarily the MVP of the week. So I got the Thunder again making it to the semifinals. The other matchup here is again health dependent, in my opinion. The Clippers could be their last series ever as members of Crypto.com Arena. Of course, they get their own new building at the start of next season. They take on the Dallas Mavericks, who, of course, played very well at the end of the season. If you take a look at their schedule a little bit, they got a little bit lucky. They played some playoff teams that were resting guys. They played some of the Portlands and the San Antonios on the back half. While the West is a lot stronger than the East, there's obviously those couple bottom teams that aren't as great. And I worry in the playoffs about ball dominant players. Now, Luka Doncic this year, and it's probable, especially if they get past the Clippers, and I think that they'd give Oklahoma City everything that they can handle. Luka could become the all-time leading playoff scorer already, surpassing Michael Jordan. What I worry about in the playoffs is Luka has a little bit of a bigger James Harden going on, and it's ironic because obviously James Harden is now leading the troops with the Clippers. But Luka is such a great scorer, and he's so talented, and he can get a triple double with ease. But Luka is a very ball dominant guard. And Dallas, even though they obviously added Christian Wood and a couple of bigs at the deadline, I don't love their size. I don't love their height, and I don't love their wing defenders. I think they're very Luka and Kyrie dependent. And for the Clippers, the biggest story here is obviously the health of the guy that I call number 2, Kawhi Leonard, who I feel like sometimes is just a robot. That's why I do call him number 2, because he may be the best mid-range jump shot I have ever seen. But at the end of the day, he's not talkative. He still has a 90s phone. He drives that pickup truck he's been driving for years. And really, he's a non-vocal leader. And I struggle with, can you win championships as a non-vocal leader? Obviously, he did it in Toronto, but he wasn't the leader on that team. Kyle Lowry was the leader on the team. When they won in San Antonio, it was still the Duncan, Ginobili, Tony Parker days. So can Kawhi Leonard this year be healthy? He's already dealing with a knee injury, and I don't think Paul George, James Harden, and while Russell Westbrook's been good this year for the Clippers off the bench, I don't think that they can handle Dallas's firepower. I really think they need that additional wing. They got some nice bench pieces, obviously Zubac, Terrence Mann, etc., which I think size-wise could give Dallas some trouble. Again, to me, it all depends on the health of the Los Angeles Clippers. If Kawhi Leonard is healthy, which we'll go ahead for this sake of the conversation, say he plays 5 out of the potential 7 games in the first round of the playoffs, I think the Clippers do advance. If not, I could very well see Dallas advancing. And I'll say this, I think the winner of this series would defeat Oklahoma City in the second round. So I would either have the Clippers, who I do have advancing to the Western Conference Finals, or Dallas advancing the Western Conference Finals. Again, I think Oklahoma City's a nice story, but I think they're just too young and they're a year away. They need to get some more pieces, which they can use out of that war chest of draft picks they have. So now that you know, I think if Kawhi Leonard, Paul George stay healthy, I think the Clippers advance the Western Conference Finals on that side of the bracket. Let's go to the other side of the Western Conference bracket, which is a very interesting matchup, which is essentially the height of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Obviously, Karl-Anthony Towns just getting back from injury. You have Rudy Gobert, who has often struggled in the playoffs, even though he could be a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year this year. Though I'd vote for Victor Wembanyama, who, by the way, even though the Spurs only won 22 games this year, I think Victor Wembanyama is already a superstar. I think you can make an argument already. He's a top 5 player in the league. He's certainly a top 3 watch in the league every single night. The dude's going to be incredible and wrecking the West for years to come. Which then leads us to this very old Phoenix team, which, has dealt with a bunch of injuries. Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant are out healthy at this point, that they have not played a lot during the regular season together. And I had said when Phoenix moved on from Chris Paul this offseason and brought in Bradley Beal, I did not love the move. I think Beal and Booker are essentially the same player. And even though they got Jokic from Portland, they don't have a ton of size outside of that. And really, outside of Grayson Allen, they don't have a ton of bench. So this is again the old veteran team in Phoenix versus the young team in Minnesota, that they do have obviously some veteran players. And really it's Anthony Edwards, Gobert, and Cat versus Durant, Beal, and Booker. This is a very even series to me. It's gonna go 6 or 7 games. I feel like if Phoenix stays hot and they can shoot the ball well, they can knock off Minnesota. Though again, I think with those two bigs inside, it's a bad matchup for Phoenix. I'll take Minnesota, the younger team here, because again, I just don't trust Phoenix. I think that they're a little bit flaky. And I don't know if Kevin Durant can necessarily carry a team 3 years after he did it with the Nets in 2021, especially with how Anthony Edwards and that Minnesota team has been playing. So I got the T Wolves advancing here. And then to me, this Nuggets Lakers series, and you can push back on this all you want, but I feel like Denver Lakers, the first round here, is not only a great first round series. A lot of people think Denver is going to sweep the Lakers or give them a gentleman sweep in 5 games. I do not personally feel that way. If you take a look at the Western Conference Finals last year between the Lakers and Nuggets, and I had said this, all 4 games came down to the wire until Denver put them away in the fourth quarter. Historically, that flips the next year. And I think the Lakers are going to give Denver all they can handle. And I've been arguing over on my other show, Championship Rings, which you can check out every Tuesday night. Me and my partner, Josh Unger, debate the hottest topics in sports in collaboration with Voltage Live, like this podcast also is today. I've been arguing the Lakers want to take their shot at Denver right here, right now. You have a healthy Anthony Davis, even though he seemed to go out with back spasms. He did play very well in his minutes last night against the Pelicans, made a couple key free throws, made a couple of key rebounds to secure that victory. I think a healthy LeBron, healthy AD, and if they get contributions from a Ruchi Hachimura, from an Austin Reeves, from a D'Angelo Russell, I think they can give Denver, who Jamal Murray is just getting back. He's not going to be as healthy in the first round. Denver is not going to be on their rhythm. And for Denver, you think that Jokic and AD should cancel each other out. LeBron and Jamal Murray should cancel each other out. I think the difference here will be obviously Michael Porter, KCP, Christian Braun, Reggie Jackson, the Denver bench. But I think the Lakers are going to come in. I think they're going to give Denver everything they can handle. And I believe this, that this matchup between the Lakers and Nuggets is the NBA Finals. I think it would be the toughest Laker matchup. I think the veteran Lakers team would take apart Minnesota in the second round. I think that they would be motivated to beat the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals. And I think the Lakers would beat Boston again. I think LeBron and AD, I think it would set up pretty well for them in the bracket if they get by Denver for LeBron to add that chance at a fifth ring, which I did predict the Lakers to make the NBA Finals prior to the season. Again, I realize how hard it is for an NBA team to go back to back, even though it is the easiest in the NBA as opposed to the other sports. But again, I watched Denver live on Easter. I was there in Colorado for the Nuggets Cavs game. It wasn't even close. The way Denver can just take the last 6 minutes of a half and suffocate you, I think is very hard unless you have superstars to go in and match them. So I think the Lakers do match up well with Denver. I think it's about closing games. I think Denver actually takes this in seven. Then they move on to Minnesota, where I think that they would beat them in probably 5 or 6 games. Same thing, by the way, with Dallas and Oklahoma, or excuse me, with the Clippers and Oklahoma City. And then we get to Denver Clippers, Western Conference Finals. And again, I think the Clippers would be a great story. They have good wings to sort of neutralize Michael Porter potentially, but I think that series could be a Jamal Murray series because of the way James Harden and Russell Westbrook play defense, and the fact that Zubac's athletically cannot handle with Jokic. I think it'd be a 4 or 5 game series. I think the Clippers would be out of gas essentially at that point. So I have the number 2 seed Denver Nuggets making it out of the Western Conference. Let's move to the East. Now, this Sixers Heat playing game tonight, I think it's really balanced. Again, Will Jimmy Butler, who you can make an argument, even though he's a top 15 player in the NBA, that he is a top 3 or at least top 5 player when it comes to the playoffs. And that's a big difference. As I've always said, the NBA regular season is Mickey Mouse to a certain extent. The playoffs is the longest out of all 4 sports. It's 65 days. You really get to see who is that guy in the moment when the game is on the line. It's where legends rise. It's why players like Jason Tatum, I don't necessarily trust yet because I haven't seen him do it consistently on a postseason basis. It's why players like Giannis Antetokounmpo, who was anointed the best player in the league in 2021 after they won that championship against Phoenix, his resume has been going down ever since that moment. It's a big playoff for Boston. It's a big playoff for Milwaukee. Can Miami get that momentum back? Can Philadelphia be healthy? And if they are, can they make some noise? So I think just because the Sixers are at home tonight, I'll take Philly. If it was in Miami, I'd take Miami. That sets them, in my opinion, Philly at the Knicks as well as Miami at Boston, because I think the loser of the 7-8, again, will just dispose either Chicago or Atlanta on Friday night. So that sets us with a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference Finals again in the first round. Sort of ironic how both conference finals matchups would be a first round rematch here as Miami goes into Boston. Now, Miami was obviously up 3-0 last year. Boston came back and won 3, and then Miami took them apart in Game 7 Memorial Day at TD Garden. But Miami lost Max Strus to the Cavs. They lost Gabe Vincent to the Lakers. Can Caleb Martin, can Duncan Robinson, can a guy like Tyler Hero, can they make the contributions necessary? We know what we're going to get from Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. I don't think Miami is as deep as they were last year, and usually, magical runs like the one we saw last year where they knocked off Milwaukee and then they knocked off the Knicks and then they knocked off Boston. Magical runs like that do not happen 2 seasons in a row. For that reason, I think Miami, their tough physical culture, pushes Boston to 6 or 7 games. But I don't think the Celtics, with the best record in the NBA by far, are going to want the embarrassment of getting knocked off by Miami or Philly. And even though, again, Joel Embiid would be a matchup problem for the Sixers, Boston destroys Philly in all other areas, even though Philly did take Boston to 7 games last year and usually plays them well. So, regardless of who Boston plays, I think it'd be a long, tough series. I don't think Boston is going to cruise for the East as much as people think, but I got the Celtics winning the series. Cavs Magic may be a very fascinating matchup in the East because it's two young teams. We know the Cavs were exposed last year by the white brights of the New York Knicks, who just took them to school. Orlando and Jamal Mosley is a very similar team to that Knicks team last year, though not as much playoff experience as that Knicks team at the head coaching position. And obviously they're not guard centric; they're more, big and lengthy. With Pablo Banchero leading the way, they do have Cole Anthony and Jalen Suggs in the backfield. You throw in Jonathan Isaac, and again, this team is long. They're physical. They split the season series with the Cavs, and while the Cavs are the best player in the series in Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell also struggled last year in that next series, and the Cavs are looking for their monkey off their back. You guys can see I'm wearing a Cavs shirt today. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure in the city of Cleveland for the Cavs to win around, or there's going to be a lot of changes. I want to talk Evan Mobley could be on the move. Darius Garland could be on the move. I have told multiple guests, I know you've heard my conversations on this podcast, that I believe the right person to move, if you're going to move somebody, is Darius Garland. Because again, a lot like Dallas with Luke and Kyrie, I don't think you can have two guards unless you're Golden State and have the two best shooters of all time be your primary scorers and win you playoff games. Again, the Cavs should win this series, though I think Orlando is a very tough matchup for them, and there is a world where the Cavs struggle here. Orlando wins in six. I'll take the opposite, though. I'll give the Cavs the benefit of the doubt that they have the worst coach in the history of the NBA in JB Bickerstaff, who they can't even inbound and will probably be gone by the end of this postseason. But I think the Cavs move on for a round, and then I think Boston just shoots the lights out of them, wins in 5 games, and gets to the Eastern Conference Finals on that side of the bracket. So the other side of the Eastern Conference bracket, you got Milwaukee against Indiana. And this, to me, all hinges on the health of Giannis Antetokounmpo. Because if Giannis only misses 2 games, this series could go 7. Obviously, Indiana went 4-1 against Milwaukee in the regular season, including a couple play-in tournament games. And the Pacers, again, they have Milwaukee's number, but in my opinion, they don't have that superstar. Tyrese Halliburton's a very good player. I think he's arriving. I don't think he's there yet. I like Pascal Siakam. I like Miles Turner. I like some of their other additions. I just don't see it for Indiana if Giannis is healthy, that they can knock off Milwaukee, who, yes, has been struggling, yes, does not play a lot of defense, but Doc Rivers, even though we make fun out of him for essentially being the Andy Reid of the NBA and blowing a ton of weeds, when you have Giannis, when you have Damian Lillard, when you have Chris Middleton healthy, the pressure's really on Milwaukee. They just need to put it together. Again, playoff basketball, the whistle swallows a lot. Your best players sort of take over, and I think Milwaukee would have the best players in the series. A lot like the Clippers here, all hinging on the health of Giannis Antetokounmpo. And then I'll take the Knicks against the Sixers. Again, I'll take Joel Embiid. I just don't trust Philly, and I think Jalen Brunson is, slowly becoming a superstar in this league. What he did in the playoffs last year was incredible. What the Knicks have been doing is incredible. They're a very tough-minded team that I think will wear Philly down in 6 or 7 games. A lot of these first round series I have going 6 or 7 games. I think it's the most even first round we've ever had in the history of the NBA playoffs. So second round then in this side of the bracket would be the 3 seed Bucks at the 2 seed Knicks. And this is where I think, again, the Bucks probably have the best player in the series in Giannis Antetokounmpo. But do you trust them? And this is a situation where the Bucks could be up 2-1 or 3-1 and lose the series lead. And the defensive, tough-minded, Tom Thibodeau, New York Knicks get to the Eastern Conference Finals. They take on the Boston Celtics. They give the Celtics a fight. They lose in 6 games. And we get Celtics Nuggets NBA Finals. And the Celtics are a very 3-point dependent shooting team. We saw Denver sweep them in the regular season. I think Boston could give Denver a game or two, but I think Jamal Murray, maybe Drew Holiday does a very good job defending him, though I don't think Drew Holiday is the third offensive threat that Boston needs. They really need Kristaps Porzingis to stay healthy and have a big series here to give them a chance, but they don't match up with Nikola Jokic at all, and they don't have the bench depth that Denver has. And so for that reason, again, I think as long as the Denver Nuggets stay healthy, Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, the best duo in the NBA, the Golden State Warriors dynasty died for the Denver Nuggets dynasty to start. The Denver Nuggets are your 2024 NBA back-to-back champions. Like that clip from the Branchworth podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Branchworth podcast right here on YouTube.